Hey everyone, I am here to talk about some movies that I like this year. Um, I thought I would put a little top 10 list together just for fun, rather than the old Instagram stories. So that way you can listen to me ramble like a madman for 15 or 20 minutes, depending on how crazy I get. But yeah, a couple ground rules. This list is just for fun, and if you ask me the same question in a week, it definitely might change. But yeah, let's just jump into it then, shall we? Gonna start with a few honorable mentions. First is gonna be a little bit of a weird one because it technically came out in 2022, but it was the very last week of 2022, so I'm putting it here because I think I'm gonna cheat a little bit. It's gonna be Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. If you've seen this movie, you know what I'm talking about, but if you haven't, you might think I sound crazy. But this is like some of the best character writing I've ever seen in an animated film. It's just entertaining. It's just I don't know, man. It's super modern and new age, but not in a way that's kind of preachy or weird or trying to, sell something. I think it's insane that, you know, they were able to tastefully create the antagonist, tastefully make the antagonist literally be death incarnate. But it works, and it's a great example of like people who make movies for children. Okay, let me speak again. People who make movies for children, knowing that children are very smart, because they are, and children can handle complex themes and complex subjects. Check it out, definitely. I'm gonna stop rambling about that one. Another one is gonna be Holy Spider, which technically also came out in 2022, but it only got its international release in 2023. This is a serial killer kind of movie, but it has a very interesting twist that I really liked. It's essentially about this serial killer who's killing prostitutes in this kind of holy Middle Eastern city. I can't quite remember which city. And what brings it beyond just a typical serial killer mystery is that kind of subplot or subtext about how the public responds. It's kind of an interesting story about, how we view certain, members of society or how the general public does. And yeah, it's just kind of surprising and not something I've ever seen before. And the ending is just so phenomenal. The subversion at the end is just like, ooh, so good. Like, you have to watch this just for the ending because I'm not even going to spoil anything. If you can get a chance to see this movie somewhere or torrent it or buy it somewhere, really recommend. Next up, I'm going to put Blackberry on this list because it was just a super solid script and super solid characters. I kind of went in with kind of medium expectations. I really wasn't sure what to expect. It was kind of one where I was like, oh, I guess I'll go to this movie today. And it really just delivered. Like, there was kind of nonstop conflict, nonstop drama, and the movie just flew by. It was a really great time, and it was surprisingly super, super funny, while not losing any kind of dramatic edge. It really kind of teetered that line very, very well. Super good. Also putting in honorable mentions, I might get some hate for this, but for not putting it in my top 10. But I'm gonna put Oppenheimer here. It's a great film. It really is, and I was thrilled to be in a packed theater for this. It was a great cinema experience as well. But I do still believe that Christopher Nolan is a much better director than he is a writer. He is one of the best directors alive, maybe one of the best directors ever, but his writing is not perfect. And I might get some hate for that, but that's truly what I believe. I think the pacing is kind of weird in this film, and I think they try to make up for it in the edit with doing these just non-stop jump cuts, or non-stop smash cuts, I should say, of just like the abstract thing, because they realize that they just have a room of dialogue and nothing's happening. I mean, not necessarily true, but it's kind of weirdly paced. With that being said, I'm not trying to be a hater. It's a really phenomenal movie and worth your time. Particularly the scene where they initially dropped the first test bomb is probably my favorite movie experience of the entire year. Like, I was so engaged and so gripped and like on the edge of my seat. Another honorable mention that I might get some flack for is Past Lives. I really love Past Lives, but it wasn't in my top 10. It just wasn't it. I love slow cinema, but I've seen better slow cinema. But I was still very engaged. It's a really solid movie, and there's a lot to think about once you leave the theater and the weeks and months after you've seen this movie. You'll still be thinking about it, absolutely. It presents this very weird thing where there isn't quite one main antagonist other than just circumstance, and that makes it very very bittersweet and sad and kind of melancholic, but real, I think. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people are latching onto this movie because there's something happening here that's saying something about like something we all kind of feel, some shared human experience. So it's good. Final honorable mention is Killers of the Flower Moon. It's Scorsese. Like, it's never bad, but it is a long movie, and I don't know. There's parts of this that I really, really loved. I don't know if they did Lily Gladstone's character justice. In my opinion, I think she's still a little bit underwritten. There's a couple of situations where I struggle to justify the decisions that the characters were making. With that being said, it's a super powerful film and very one of those ones where you kind of just leave the theater and don't talk to anyone. You're just thinking. And what I really, really loved in this movie was kind of the final act scene where, spoiler alert, cover your ears for a second, Scorsese makes a cameo. And I think that's the first time I've seen in a while where I'm like, oh, Scorsese's actually trying something new here. He's doing something interesting, and he's, making a statement at his age still about the nature of movie making, just the fact that it might be inherently exploitative. And I thought that was very interesting, and I thought that was a very good or just like fascinating decision to make in that movie. So anyways, we're past the honorable mentions. Let's get to the top 10 real quick. Starting with number 10, I'm going to put Bottoms. This is just a good time. I'm glad to see some diversity in terms of just the types of movies that are being made now. I haven't seen this type of mid-budget comedy, like raunchy teenage comedy, in a long time, and I just had a great time in the theater, and I've watched it since, and it's just fun. I love to see a movie where like the filmmakers will sacrifice plot for the joke. Like, if it means getting a better bit, they can like bend some of the rules, you know what I mean? And it's nice to see a movie like that, in an era where there's just this fight between, highbrow cinema and lowbrow cinema, and this one has to exist and this one can't exist. It's nice to see just people with a vision executing on a vision and making the funniest movie of the year, for sure. Number 9, I'm gonna go with Barbie. Um, there's this movie reviewer that I really like called Mark Kermode, and he makes a good point about this movie, talking about how this movie kind of has its cake and eats it too, in the sense that it's not oblivious to its controversy and its kind of downsides of what it's doing and what it's selling, but it somehow manages to like I don't know how they pull it off, but they do. They somehow manage to kind of fully embrace that, but also make it out the other side as a winner. Yeah, I don't know. Not to mention this movie's really fucking hilarious and super just, I don't know. Everyone's firing on full cylinders here. 4 cylinders. Yeah, you know the expression. Everyone like brought their A game is what I'm trying to say, and it was just nice to see a movie that was like, okay, we have some stars. Like Margot Robbie is a proper star now. Ryan Gosling is a proper star. Like, you are seeing the best in the game entertain you. And yeah, it's just like such a vision. Super, super stoked on how this one turned out, because I did have some high expectations considering the team behind it. And it did go even above and beyond what I thought it could pull off. So yeah, that's very good. I'm gonna grab a sip of water here because I can't stop talking. Number 8 is going to be The Boy and the Heron, the new Studio Ghibli film. Now, I am not a diehard Studio Ghibli fan by any means. I have now seen 2 Studio Ghibli movies. I have seen The Boy and the Heron and Spirited Away. But I really, really loved The Boy and the Heron. I mean, I love Spirited Away, obviously, but this movie I really loved. There's just something about Ghibli movies where it puts you in kind of a different viewing mode than other movies do. You kind of are just transported, and you are, grabbed by the hand and pulled along through this journey, where nothing is fully always explained to you. You're just kind of in these worlds that, when you look at them contextually, they just make sense. It's just like I'm in an ecosystem now where everything's living here and working. The one thing about Ghibli that's just amazing is they are doing things. They're putting the animation format. What am I trying to say here? They're doing things that couldn't be done in any other format, if that makes sense. The ideas that they're trying to pull off and the stuff that they're trying to say couldn't be done in live action. It has to be done with this fantastical world and all these crazy characters. And yeah, it's like I said, they know that these movies are not just for children, they're for everyone, because there's some really crazy scenes, and in terms of like its emotional resonance, and yeah, I mean, I don't know really what to say else about Studio Ghibli that hasn't already been said, but I'm gonna jump to number 7, which is Joyland, another movie that came out in 2022 but didn't have a international release until 2023. This is a really interesting original story, basically about how this man from a very traditional family becomes a dancer for a transgender person at their dance kind of show or whatever. And it's really definitely one of the most visually stunning movies I've seen all year. Like, truly, the amount of storytelling in the frame is masterclass. And it's just a real kind of heartbreaker, to be honest. It's a real cautionary tale and sad story about how kind of rigid worldview is, ultimately very harmful to people advertently or inadvertently. And yeah, it really makes you consider, the uselessness of rigid thought and intense traditionalism. Yeah, with that being said, I think this is surprisingly a very accessible film. I think most people could watch this movie and get something out of it. It's a very human film. With everything I've just said, it's not a political film by any means. It's just very much a human story that I feel like everyone has an ability to latch onto. So yeah, like this one I really, really want to rewatch. So yeah, definitely give it a check out for sure. Number 6 is another very original movie called May December. I truly feel like I've never seen something like this before. It has the weirdest tone and just like feeling that it gives you in the theater, or at least when you're watching this movie, that is very like undescribable. It's kind of absurd, and there were people in the theater when I watched it that were laughing, but you can't really tell if they're laughing because there's something funny or if they're just very uncomfortable. This is an acting masterclass, truly. Everyone is so dialed on this movie. It's really, really good. It's been getting a lot of hype, and for good reason. I love Natalie Portman's character, and I think what she represents is also brings so much to this movie, because on its own it's a very interesting story about this couple, I guess, at the center, but they're also making another very interesting statement about like how Hollywood loves to exploit these stories, just like, and are so shameless about it. So yeah, it's really, really interesting, and there are some scenes in this where I'm just like fascinated. Like you just cannot look away. Particularly the scene that I really loved is when the dad character is smoking weed with his son, and I won't give too much away, but you're watching this and you're like, I've never seen anything like this on film. Like this is the weirdest dynamic, and you don't even really know what to feel, but you feel something. There's some sort of cathartic release when you're watching it, but you're like grossed out, and you're also fascinated, and you're also just trying to narrow down these characters the whole movie. It's like an investigation story. Yeah. Speaking of investigation story, number 5 pick is Anatomy of a Fall. This is a really great kind of slow burn movie, but also not really. About a murder mystery, essentially. And this movie has some of the best courtroom scenes. It's also a courtroom drama. The best courtroom scenes I've seen, maybe ever. Like whenever that bald fucking guy is on screen, you're like, okay, like we're about to get into the nitty gritty here. Yeah, guys, like if you love any sort of mystery, anything that like is slowly giving you more information, this is a really good movie. You'll find yourself really doing some crazy mental gymnastics of like, okay, this is how I feel now. Oh wait, no, this is how I feel now. And the giving and taking away that this movie does, and the subversion of expectations, is just like a roller coaster. Like it's just so fun. And there's so much to contemplate and think about still. Like even when I think about it now, I'm like, what am I supposed to think? You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely recommend this movie. Every character is so dialed in this, and the acting, especially from the lead actress, is so crazy. Like this movie could have been a disaster if the acting wasn't there. Like there's so much that leans on her, and she does just some amazing work. Number 4 is going to be a Japanese film that I saw recently called Monster. This movie also really subverts expectations quite a bit. You go into it in the first act, you're like, oh, this is going to be an interesting mystery. Like, we're going to have to really figure something out here. But by the second act, it starts to change, and by the third, it just turns into this very, very beautiful and tranquil and peaceful type of film, just about life, love, kind of the quiet, contemplative moments of existence, for sure. Yeah, if you've seen anything by this director, he also did a movie called Shoplifters. You kind of know the vibe, but I think I prefer this movie to Shoplifters. Yeah, it's really interesting because especially the headspace that it kind of puts you in going forwards, but then things kind of start to unravel, and then it just kind of sits with what has unraveled, and yet it doesn't lose any of its pace. You know, the entire third act is like very interesting because it's like we've already found out the information, we already know, but you just are so drawn to what you're seeing. There's just there's so many moments of life on screen that are like, you know, master crafted direction. This one still might be in theaters, so check it out if you get a chance. Number 3 is going to be The Holdovers. This is a great family movie. This is one of those movies that I feel confident I could show anyone, and I think it's going to be kind of an instant classic. Yeah, it's sorry, I'm struggling here. I've heard some criticism that this movie is predictable, and I honestly don't think that's a deterrent at all. Like, sure, there's aspects of this where it's like, yeah, they're all following arcs, and it's pretty clear, like, you know, what might happen here, but there's just so much to absorb in the acting performances that it doesn't really change anything. Like, I just rewatched this movie like about a month after initially seeing it, and I was still having a phenomenal time. Yeah, the actors are so good. Paul Giamatti brings his A game. So does what's her name? Divine something. I can't remember her full name. And the kid in the movie, or the young guy in the movie, is also really phenomenal. Yeah, it's just a feel good one, but also, you know, hits you in the heart when it needs to, for sure. And gives you that cathartic, emotional feeling throughout. I'm not sure what else to say there, but we're down to the top 2 if you're still with me. And I really struggled. Like, last week I had this second pick on my first, but I think I'm going to keep it at second. And that is Talk to Me. This movie was such a great surprise. I did not expect anything from this, to be honest. I don't actually watch too much horror, but this thing just blew my mind. This is everything you want in a movie, to be honest. It's disturbing, it's entertaining. The script is fucking mind-boggling. Like, the script is just so dialed. There's not one part of this movie that could be cut, in my opinion. It's airtight. And that end shot, just, I was smiling ear to ear during the credits. I couldn't believe that they pulled it off. It was one of those movies where you really are like, I don't know how they're gonna end this on a proper note. Like, I don't know how they can make this make sense. And then you see that final frame, and you go, holy shit. Yeah, this movie just makes you feel every single emotion that your body can produce. There are some parts where, like, I could not look. Like, I had to look away because it's proper horror. Like, it is a proper horror movie, and it's nice to see something that is so genre focused, but also, and it's kind of succinct, but also just a phenomenal story. And the roles in this, the acting, is also amazing. I honestly loved seeing kind of a New Zealand cast that weren't, you know, trying to Americanize their film here. I think it was a really good choice that paid off. And yeah, I'm super stoked to see what these guys do next. know them from their YouTube days, and I was not expecting a movie of this high caliber, but I'm stoked. So with that all being said, gonna grab one more glass of water real quick before I say number one, which is going to be the new Yorgos Lanthimos movie, Poor Things. The reason I struggle to put this at number one is because this is the most recent movie I've seen, and I am really struggling with the recency bias, but I think it might be the best movie I've seen all year. I've been a Yorgos Lanthimos fan for quite a long time, since I watched, what did I watch first? I think I watched The Lobster first, but then I remember really liking him when I watched Killing of the Sacred Deer. And I think Poor Things might be his best movie, which is saying quite a lot. He just has his style and his tone so perfect in this movie. I think he's kind of really realized how his humor lands, and leaned into it in a way that makes it surprisingly very accessible for a Yorgos Lanthimos film. This movie is really great because no matter how much you bite off, there's plenty to chew, if that makes sense. Like, you can kind of just like casually watch this if you wanted, and be very, very entertained. Like, it's properly funny and just properly entertaining. But, you know, the more you think about this movie, the more it's just like a rabbit hole of like, oh, like, that's such an interesting decision that he made there. And I mean, it's just like, I feel like he had a jackpot here with his actors too. Everyone knew exactly what they were doing here and what they were bringing. I love Mark Ruffalo in this. He's so good and embodies this character so well. And I mean, Emma Stone, like, if you've seen this movie, you're like, how is this the same girl that did Easy A? Like, she is a superstar in this movie, and this movie would, like with Anatomy of a Fall, this movie would completely fall apart if you didn't have an actress like this. Like, she is bringing so much, and every time she's on screen, you're so dialed into what she's saying and doing. I cannot wait to see this movie again. I think it's just saying a lot about, I don't know, like what it means to be human and the roles we put ourselves in and the pros and cons of roles, especially gender roles. Not that this is necessarily like a feminist movie or like a, very progressive movie on the surface level, but it does put forward some very human struggles and kind of poses a lot of interesting questions about the contradictions of how we have power over one or the other person, one or the other gender as well, or other genders. It's a great movie. I don't know what else to say. Check this one out. It's still in theaters, guys. It's what I will say too is it's quite accessible. Even though Yorgos is known for these crazy, like, mindfuck movies, this one is super accessible and super just properly entertaining. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you stuck around for this long, thank you, because I have been rambling right now. Let me know in the comments if you know me. If you don't know me, feel free to hop in there and let me know what I missed, what you loved this year. If I had some really bad takes, let me know as well. I'd love to argue and make some enemies in there. So see you next year, y'all. Peace.